Hola, molt bon dia. Benvinguts al webinar d'avui, on parlarem de la gran distribució de productes agroalimentaris al Regne Unit. La sessió d'avui es dividirà en dos blocs. Per una banda, tindrem l'empresa Mission Ventures, que és una empresa que s'encarrega de capacitar altres empreses del sector alimentari per poder accedir a aquest mercat i en aquest canal de distribució. Tindrem el Paddy Willis i el Louis Bedwell. I al segon bloc tindrem l'Òscar Martí de la nostra oficina d'acció a Londres, que ens explicarà un servei que engegarem en breu que ajuda les empreses catalanes a poder accedir en aquest mercat. Al finalitzar tindrem uns 10 minutets, un quart d'hora per preguntes i respostes que ens podeu anar formulant al llarg de la sessió. Informar que aquesta sessió serà en català i en anglès i serà enregistrada. Per tant, d'aquí uns dies ens rebreu un enllaç on podreu tornar a visualitzar la sessió en el cas que us vau perdre, que us perdéssiu alguna part. Per acabar, aquesta sessió som d'acció. Nosaltres som l'Agència de Competitivitat de l'Empresa de la Generalitat de Catalunya i ajudem a l'empresa en diferents àmbits, entre ells la internacionalització. Sense més, dono pas als dos primers ponents. Hello, Paddy. Hello, Luis. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Good morning, Mark, and good morning, everybody.
Hello. You can begin whenever you're ready.
Fine. Okay. Thank you. So I'll share my screen. Hopefully you can all see that. So you can see me? Good. So we're delighted this morning to spend a little time helping you to understand how you can optimize your market opportunity here in the UK. Oops. This is not going forward. There we go. So my name is Paddy. Oops, sorry, hang on. So my name is Paddy Willis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mission Ventures. I'm going to be talking to you for a little while about the market in general. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Louis, who will talk a little bit about some of the data that's come out of the recent pandemic conditions. And then I'll talk a little more about the retail market more specifically and some of our recommendations for how you might approach it. So who are Mission Ventures? Well, we're a small organization of entrepreneurs who have all built and sold successfully businesses within the retail space. We've built challenger brands. We have a lot of gray hair. We have over 80 years experience in the industry. We've worked with online retailers like Ocado to help launch over 100 new brands into the marketplace. And we've also partnered with a number of organizations to help run business accelerator programs to support startup businesses in their launch here in the UK market. And recently this summer, we announced a joint venture with Warburtons, who are the UK's largest bakery business, in fact, the 5th largest food brand in the UK. And the logos you see there are businesses which we've built and sold ourselves. So we are people who have understood from the ground level up how you build and scale businesses here in this market. So we hope we can share some valuable information and recommendations to you. These are some of the brands that we've worked with in some of those accelerator programs, really just to help you to appreciate we work across a very broad range of categories, as you can see, from soft drinks through to coffee, through to breakfast cereals, breads, biscuits, etc. So let's just briefly pause and talk a bit about the UK market. The UK is famous for many things, a lot of cultural icons, some of the images you can see on the screen there. It's a large country in terms of population, where we have a larger population than Spain. I understand Spain has about 47 million people. We are 66 million. So it's quite a decent market for the retail trade. It's a strong economy, despite the recent issues with COVID-19. And we have a relatively low unemployment rate. Now, this, of course, could change in the coming months and years. but our unemployment rate is roughly 4%, versus in Spain 13%. So there is a strong resale market for your products. And indeed, over half of our food that we consume within this UK market is imported from overseas. And within that, the EU is certainly our largest trading bloc. If we pause and look at the market itself, I've divided it here into food and non-alcoholic drink, which is worth over £100 billion at grocery. We've separated out catering, which is another 60, and 50 billion from alcohol. But the food and drink, excluding alcohol, has been in strong growth. It's 24% up over the last 10 years, partly reflecting some growth in the population through immigration, but also representing some of the growth in premium products. Now, if we look at the actual retailers operating in this UK market, this is another difference with Spain. Here we have a very high concentration within the top 4 largest supermarkets. They account for 66% of the volume of grocery sales. We have seen growth within the discounters such as Aldi and Lidl. They have increasingly come up this chart over the last 10 years, but we have a very strong dominance, and that is something which naturally plays very strongly in any strategy that you would consider when looking to grow into the UK market. The UK has an aging population. There has been growth through in the birth rate through immigration, and as a nation, we are now a multicultural society, have been for many, many decades. 14% of the population would be non-white, and within the market as a whole, we've seen a very steady increase in the interest in health, in consumption. Naturally, in the last year, this has been driven in particular by COVID, but overall, there is an increasing interest in food that is healthy and tasty. And in the case of the younger generation, so the millennial generation and Generation Z, there's a very apparent interest in not just the quality of the product, but also the values of the brand and the purpose of the founders of that brand. People want to feel that they're buying products from companies that they respect and whose values they share. And that's a very important consideration when looking at how you position your brand in that market. What do consumers want? Well, this will be no surprise to anyone in the industry. This will be true in Spain as well. You're looking obviously to try and find that sweet spot, which is between health, taste and convenience. If you can hit that spot, you have a very good chance of succeeding. But as you will know, as people who are experienced in selling in your domestic market, and I'm sure also in other export markets, package. They were very clear about this, and it's this drive towards transparency with consumers and the use of clean ingredients. And then the last one, but very important, is better indulgence. So this is where the example you've used here is where Dairy Milk spent 2.5 years trying to work out how they could reduce the amount of sugar within their chocolate bars. This is one thing which we're seeing a lot of across the industry, is businesses where people are trying to help provide better indulgence. But the market is changing. Now, I don't need to tell you that we've been going through an interesting time here in the UK over the last 4 years, since the population decided to want to sever the ties with the European Union. And that has provided a lot of uncertainty and distraction. And then, of course, COVID-19 has come along, and that's had a massive impact on the way that retail has operated, the supply chain, as well as consumer confidence and concerns. So I'm going to hand over now for Louis to run through some data on that point. Louis. Yeah, somebody will need to unmute Louis.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. Thank you, Paddy.
Hello, just 1 second, Louis. It seems that we're having some technical problems with the sound. So I'm gonna ask Paddy again if he can do the last 3 slides, because people could not hear it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you if you could do that, please. Yes.
On this one?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, begin again with this one, because people were saying that they could not listen to what you were saying. Just 1 second. The people who are listening to our presentation, could you please tell me if you're listening me, if you're hearing what I'm saying? On the chat, please. Seems like no one's answering at the moment. Okay. People are saying that they can hear us. So could you please say it again, Paddy? And I'm really sorry about this.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hopefully people can hear me now, and I'll try and speak as clearly as I can. So the point I was trying to make with this slide is that we have an aging population with a birth rate being supported by predominantly immigration, and we have a wonderfully multicultural society now. And the key factors that are driving the post-family and pre-family generations is health. There is a much greater interest in healthier consumption, and this obviously has been exacerbated and increased by the impact of COVID-19. With the younger generation in particular, we are seeing that there is a big drive towards values and purpose-driven brands. So you'll need to think about how you can express that clearly when you come to the UK market. People are looking beyond product and looking towards the purpose and values of businesses, which they hope will share their own values. This is typical, I'm sure, of your own market as well. The drivers for consumption are taste, convenience, and health. And clearly, if you can intersect between any of those two, then you have a good, strong proposition. But the strongest proposition is where you can intersect across all 3. That will be true, I know, of your domestic market. And then looking at the top 5 trends here in the UK, the first is personalization. And I've used the example here of Nutella, but you may also have had a strong campaign in Spain from Coca-Cola, where the opportunity was for consumers to have products sent to them with their own name on the label. And this is also a reflection of the strength in the growth of the direct-to-consumer marketplace in e-commerce. Freedom foods. So brands like Oatly are in the free from or health category, and the driver here is that consumers want product not only that is maybe free, allergen free or free from a certain allows them an intolerance to be overcome, but which does not compromise on taste and quality. In Taste Not Waste, we've used the example of Toast Beer. Now they make a very good range, award-winning range of beers and lagers using the yeast from waste bread from the baking industry. So it's a wonderfully circular economy, and that plays very well to the millennial generation, where the values of that resonate very strongly with the consumer. I've used the example of RX bar here for no small print. This is, people are fed up with the fact that so much of the processed food, they are now confused as to what they're eating. And so RX bar is a good example of a brand that's put all of their ingredients, their clean ingredients, up front in a very transparent manner on their packaging, literally on the front of that pack. And then better indulgence, people still want to have those treats. The example here with Cadbury's, but also if you look at a category like biscuits, for example, the biscuit category is in small decline, but the area where it's growing is in thins. So that's where you have something like an Oreo business, or Oreo biscuit, which is thinner. So people still have the experience of the Oreo, but they have the satisfaction of consuming less. Now the market is clearly changing, and you will all be very well aware of the tribulations that we've been going through for the last 4 years since the decision was taken to leave the EU. And that has caused a lot of uncertainty across the industry. But the very clear and present issue is naturally the pandemic and COVID-19. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Louis, who is going to now step through some of the data relating to the changes in the market. Louis.
Thank you, Paddy. We'll try again. So as Paddy says, 2020 has been a volatile year across grocery retail and you know, life in general, and it's been quoted by some sources that we've experienced up to 10 years of growth in just 6 months, particularly in the online channel. So grocery retail in particular has seen huge growth this year. You can see that in the middle of March, where the point number 1 is that we were kind of 25% above previous years. But as shopping restrictions have come in, and that's with people being able to buy less or spend less time outside, or the shopping experience as a whole has become more stressful, we've seen people visiting the shops less and less. But in doing so, there's still an opportunity, as the last 3 weeks have seen a decline, but we're still 9% above where we were in March 2020. And people are, Paddy, thank you, visiting the shops much less. So they're making fewer trips to the supermarket, but as they visit, they're spending much more. So over half, so 51% of people are shopping less and spending more. This could be for a number of reasons. As I said, the shopping experience has become more stressful. The government initiatives have encouraged people to eat out in restaurants, but more importantly, there's been huge growth in the online channels. And on the next slide, we're showing that online retail as a whole has been the only channel to gain market share from others. So discounters, supermarkets, convenience stores, and the high street, online has taken more than £313 million in the last 6 months from these channels. And that's led to 79.7% growth in internet. And that's grocery retail, but also kind of e-commerce as a whole. You know, we've seen Amazon drivers whizzing around the streets of the UK more than ever. And some sources say that each consumer is now spending kind of £2 a week more on food, which is approximately £200 million a week more, stocking up their cupboards and in particular their freezers. So this presents a brilliant opportunity for all of you who are looking to access the UK either for the first time or grow your presence here, as 2 of the biggest winners of the pandemic have been Ocado. So Ocado is the UK's largest grocery retailer, just online. They've experienced their almost 40% growth. and independent stores. And independent stores in particular are where consumers are looking for new flavors and new brands, and are maybe willing to spend a little bit more money. So if you have a premium product that delivers on taste and flavor, then these are really two channels for you. And they're also some of the most accessible channels for a brand to access. The barriers to entry are lower. It's cheaper to trade there, and you need less stock. So it's an almost risk-free approach for testing a new market. So onto the next slide. This is the big question of, there's an opportunity in the UK, but for which brands? We've seen that cooking at home has been up, so toiletries are down. People are consuming much more alcohol at home, and are buying more dry foods to stock up their store cupboard. I mentioned earlier that frozen foods are up. But social occasions, so visiting restaurants and bars and pubs is also down. So this means that for the future, Paddy, thank you. And one more. So for the future, there are kind of 6 key things that the pandemic has forced us to think about. There'll be some key trends moving forwards, and that's that health basics will matter. People are very health conscious, and they want products that deliver on taste and value of health, but price is still really important. You know, the winter will probably see us dip into a quite deep recession, and spending will slow down. People will start thinking about where their pounds are being spent. That means that they'll really want accessible pricing of luxury foods, and that doesn't mean cheap, but as people visit bars and restaurants less often, they'll want to bring that restaurant quality to their home. So if you've got maybe some brilliant hamon or some wine that should be served in a restaurant, but you can get that into people's houses, that seems like a huge opportunity for the future. And more importantly, world foods. So there's the rise of the staycation. So people aren't going overseas for their holidays, they're staying at home. So products that allow people to relax and indulge, but in their home, that's important too. And the last two are diversity. So that means not relying solely on one channel for sales. So that's diversity of sales. We've seen brands that had a good retail strategy and a good food service strategy and a good direct to consumer strategy have managed to grow throughout the pandemic, whereas other brands have really fallen off. And trust is a huge one. So this is linked to point 2, where price matters. As people start to think about where they're spending money, they want to buy products that they know will deliver on taste. And big brands can win that trust with their marketing spend. So this is, if you can win consumers' trust over the next 6 to 12 months, then they'll surely stick with you. So the market over the last 6 months has been volatile, and there's been huge changes, but some things that always remain true are how you build a good brand within the UK market. And I'm going to hand back to Paddy, who can tell you some more.
Thanks, Louis. So I'm sure many of you will recognize a lot of that in your domestic market in terms of the impact that COVID-19 has been having. So I just want to focus a little bit now about how would you build your business here in the UK. So let's start with some of the challenges that you would face. Now, some of you, I believe, may already have some experience of trading in the UK. But the natural challenge, of course, here is that you're not here. You're not in this marketplace. You're back in Spain. So there is always the challenge around how you manage relationships at long distance. And also understanding what is your optimized, your best route to enter the market and to build a solid foundation. Also, actually, is it really viable for you with your products and your costs, your price point? And who can support your product whilst you're on shelf here in the UK market. So what typically happens is most people on this sort of knowledge and support grid will often be on the bottom right-hand side, where they'll have a low-level of market knowledge, but they might be paying quite a lot of money to have a level of support, but that's not necessarily putting the emphasis into the right areas, because you're not necessarily marrying up your knowledge with the support. So what we hope we can show you is the ability to achieve a high level of market knowledge with that high level of support. Now, we hear this a lot from talking to many of the embassies here in London, is, you know, they will always say, they always get these emails from home saying, please, can you get me the name of the category buyer for Tesco's, the largest supermarket. And the important message here is that this is a marathon, not a sprint. You have to take the long view in building this market. And I'm sure those of you that have successfully built export markets in other countries will recognize this. There are no quick solutions, unfortunately. So we work with startups, we work with young companies, and our key message is that in this very, very dynamic market, you need to think, you have the mentality of a startup. Some of you may be many years away from having been a startup in your home country, but you need to rediscover that mentality of how do you become noticed? How do you win over your consumers? So on this pyramid, we have, if you like, where we recommend that businesses seek those early blue chip retail symbols. So people like Planet Organic, Selfridges, Whole Foods Market, people like that, where your products can be discovered and you can start to build out a platform of your early adopters and your ambassadors, your brand ambassadors. Marigold, Tree of Life and Cotswold Fair, the three logos to the bottom right here, are three of the specialist retailers that serve the industry, who we work closely with and can recommend. And then progressively, as you go up, you'll start to see that you move into more of the big distribution, into the larger supermarkets. Now, of course, this is a generalization. You can achieve these quicker, but it would be wrong to assume that because you may be trading Carrefour and some of the large supermarkets back home, that you can automatically step into large retailers here. One of the challenges is that there's been huge pressure on the supermarkets over the recent years, and being heard is increasingly difficult. You know, how do you get a buyer's attention, particularly in the case where we've seen a 50% reduction in the buying team at Waitrose supermarket, and in early 2019, even Tesco's laid off 25% of its buying team. So you have a group of people who are already under huge pressure, and you're competing with every single brand, both from the UK and overseas, for their attention. So it's very, very difficult to break through. The way to achieve that clearly is, and this will be, I know, true for your home market as well, is to communicate really precisely and clearly how your brand will add to their category sales. There's no point them just listing another Me Too product, because that's not attractive. There's no reason for them to do that. Why would they make the change? It may not perform as well as some of the other existing brands that they have. So what any buyer is looking for is they're looking for new consumers to come into their aisle, into their shopping center. And they're also looking for existing customers to be encouraged to spend more money. Now, you need to be able to articulate very clearly how your brand is going to achieve that and meet what is an unmet consumer need in this case. So we're all about encouraging people to build a brand, not a product. Ultimately, a product is something that can be replaced. But think of the brands that you believe in. I, for example, have been an Apple consumer for the last dozen or so years. I could not imagine not buying Apple phones or Apple laptops or iPads going forward. I am an advocate of Apple. I'm not a technical person, but I like their products. So I will always, my heart is with Apple, but there are many other probably better products, but I'm sold with the Apple brand. So it is that element of emotional benefits that you need to be able to reflect back on, as well as the quality of your products. I'm going to give a couple of examples of brands that have come into the UK market and through a process of branding on the product have managed to achieve a substantial change in their fortunes. Ape Snacks is coconut products that come from Thailand. Originally, they were being imported into the UK. They were sliced coconut that was fried with added sugar. And they were achieving very modest sales. In fact, one of my colleagues, Nigel Parrott, helped to build this brand, and they moved, following the trends, towards a baked product, which was healthier. They used salt because there was more interest in a savory product than a sweet product. And they achieved a substantial difference in the fortunes of the business in a very short period of time. Another example, using dried fruit, which is sourced from China. Again, you'll see the pack on the left. Apologies, the photograph is not great. But you'll see that it was a very straightforward product proposition. This is a sliced apple in a bag. On the right, you have the transformation into a brand, a product which exudes quality, and you can really imagine those apples growing on the tree. And so it's exactly the same product, but it substantially increased the amount of trade it was achieving here in the UK. Now, this is a really important technical point. That you may have a great product, fabulous brand with lots of values and purpose, but it must also be safe. It goes without saying that you will have a barrier to entry if you're not able to achieve one of the recognized standards here on the slide, and I'm sure the team in London will be able to help you understand that further. And the question then, of course, is where are your consumers? It would be wrong to assume that your consumers in the UK are necessarily the same as they are in Spain. I always use the example of in the chocolate market. People always think that because we speak the same language, the UK and the USA are the same. But you look at the complete failure of the American brand Hershey's to achieve market penetration here in the UK is because it's a very, very different taste profile, and the UK palate doesn't accept it. So there's just an example of making the wrong assumption that because the language is the same or the demographic is the same, that necessarily the product will always work in the same way. So be very conscious of that, but there's no point dropping your fishing line into a pond or a lake where there are no fish. You need to find out where your consumers are. And then, of course, you need to find your brand champions. Again, you will know this from your own domestic market, but I emphasize this is all about finding those people who will discover your product, often in one of those independent retailers or specialist retailers, and then become the champions for promoting it to their friends and family. So within this, of course, sampling is so important because it's the ability to listen to the consumer feedback and to explain the product, explain the brand, and the opportunity, the usage occasions, etc. And then just in coming to a close here, I would recommend that you consider, and this is also very important for anyone who's maybe got a product where they might struggle necessarily for their branding to stand out. So this could be in the case of meats and even wines and cheeses particularly, is think about how you might enter the Great Taste Awards here in the UK. Getting one of those symbols on your pack with some stars on it is a great way to draw attention from buyers and from consumers. So I've been a judge for the Great Taste Awards. It's incredibly competitive, but if you are able to win a star, it's a great way to get stand out on shelf. So I just want to sum up with 9 points. So first of all, please think like a startup. Think about how you're going to compete with everybody else that's already in this market and entering the market here in the UK. Think about which product trends you're able to tick, and look for those opportunities in direct to consumer, because that is not going to go away. That's only going to increase. Clearly, we're going to have ongoing impact from COVID. And please don't just assume that the national supermarkets will want you from day one. They will want to know that you've achieved traction already in the UK market. Obviously, you need the right safety certifications for your product. And if necessary, you need to think about how can you transform the brand that you maybe have at home into something that resonates more strongly with the UK consumer. Find those early adopters, and I mean both in retail as well as your early consumers. And then think about how could you stand out, and certainly Taste Awards are one way of doing that. I hope that's been helpful. I look forward to helping field any of the questions that you may have, but it's my pleasure now to hand over to Oscar, who will take you into the next part of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paddy, for the presentation. Thank you for the introduction. I think it's been very interesting, and it's fantastic, I think, for everyone to learn all these insights from you and Louis. I'm going to switch to Catalan now to introduce the service that together we have prepared for Catalan companies. Doncs bon dia a tothom, soc l'Òscar Martí, soc el director de l'oficina de Londres aquí a Regne Unit. Com veieu, no us sembla, fa bastant de sol avui. Estic esperant un moment per veure, confio que tothom em pot sentir i lamento molt els problemes tècnics que heu tingut abans, amb el que tinc obert el meu xat també. Estic veient si hi ha algun problema, sisplau. Si no em poguéssiu sentir o qualsevol cosa, feu-ho saber, o si algú envia només un missatge ràpid per confirmar que em sentiu, doncs fantàstic. Entremig i molt ràpidament us ensenyo una presentació amb els detalls del que hem estat treballant des d'Acció junt amb Mission Ventures. Crec que ara mateix tothom hauria de veure la presentació que teniu en pantalla. És aquest programa d'accés a grans superfícies que hem creat i és el UK Food Retail, que l'hem anomenat. Com comentava el Paddy, em sembla que això és crític, es tracta no d'un sprint, sinó d'una marató. Aquí és on volem arribar, en aquestes grans superfícies. Portem molts anys també d'experiència en el mercat, coneixem les dificultats i crec que molts de vosaltres, que segurament haureu ja potser fet algun intent al mercat de Regne Unit, coneixeu també el gran potencial que té de premi, però també reconeixeu les grans dificultats a vegades amb introduir el producte en un mercat tan competitiu com aquest, on em sembla que és molt important comentar i destacar un altre cop el que deia el Paddy, que dona'm el nom del buyer de Tesco no és suficient. Necessitem més que això. En aquest sentit, el programa que hem preparat és un programa d'acompanyament, com veieu que he escrit, per entrar a la gran distribució. Acompanyament en el sentit que estarem amb l'empresa des del principi de la fase fins al final i treballant cada petit detall que sigui necessari per aconseguir assolir l'èxit al final d'aquest procés. En aquest sentit, ens centrem en capacitació i adaptació del producte. El mercat és molt competitiu i en aquest sentit, per arribar a aconseguir reunions i per aconseguir l'èxit per entrar a la gran superfície, necessitem molts cops preparar el producte perquè tingui èxit. I com ja sabeu, Asda és una col·laboració entre Acció i Mission Ventures. És un programa també que de cara a aprofitar sinergies hem concebut amb la idea que sigui un programa en el que participaran diverses empreses a la vegada. Estem esperant un nombre mínim d'empreses per iniciar aquest programa que confiem que en una fase 1, que ara us presentaré, estiguem parlant almenys unes 10 empreses. I també us presento en aquesta diapositiva el que estem esperant com a perfil de l'empresa. Això al final és uns exemples, uns aspectes més generals sobre el que esperem de les empreses que es presentin, però hem destacat o hem volgut posar uns mínims com una experiència prèvia en exportació i estem parlant senzillament almenys d'algun tipus d'experiència que sigui almenys un mercat, potser fora de l'estat espanyol. Treballarem principalment en producte ambient, però és de forma preferent. Ho parlem principalment per un tema de logística, per un tema de conveniència. Vull dir, el producte en cadena de fred també ho revisarem cas a cas, amb el que convidem també a totes les empreses amb producte que no sigui ambient, si creuen que poden fer ús d'aquest programa en què presentin la seva sol·licitud. Una certificació de producte mínima, hem posat com un mínim equivalent a salsa, si esteu familiaritzats amb les certificacions del Regne Unit, és la certificació més senzilla d'obtenir. Un BRC seria, òbviament, més que suficient, però també valorarem cas a cas la certificació que tingui cada producte. Hi ha empreses amb un mínim de recorregut, hem posat 12 mesos mínim des de la data de creació. Si veiem les altres condicions que demanem, doncs crec que ja s'entén que l'empresa té aquest mínim de recorregut i amb una facturació mínima prevista del voltant de 100.000 euros. Llavors, si esteu seguint amb la presentació, veureu que ho hem estructurat en 3 fases. Posem per cada fase també quan iniciaríem l'activitat. En aquest cas veieu que ens anem fins a març del 2021 i això és bàsicament per un motiu, per tres motius principals. Al final és el tema de capacitat de l'oficina de Mission Ventures per gestionar el que esperem siguin moltes sol·licituds per a aquest programa. Després tenim l'aspecte d'evitar la campanya de Nadal, que no és, òbviament, el millor moment ni per vosaltres com a productors ni per als compradors de Regne Unit. Iniciaríem llavors la segona fase al voltant, passades les vacances de Nadal o passat el break de Nadal, entre gener i febrer del 2021, per de cara al març del 2021 estar fent les reunions, que és el tercer aspecte. També ens allarguem fins aquí per la situació de pandèmia que tenim actualment, amb la qual esperem, però veurem i assessorarem quan sigui el moment quina és la situació, si es pogués produir un desplaçament físic de cara al finals del primer trimestre del 2021. En aquest sentit, la fase 1 és completament gratuïta i motiu de més també pel qual estem encantats de rebre les vostres sol·licituds. Farem un primer filtratge per veure si realment veiem que l'empresa encaixa en el servei que estem proposant i si realment li pot servir. I en aquesta primera fase, per a aquelles empreses que la iniciïn, el que farem és un informe previ. Estem parlant d'un informe de 2 o 3 fulls on bàsicament farem una identificació del potencial del producte, observant competidors, posicionament de preu, veient en quins grans magatzems, com s'està estructurant la cadena de distribució, quines certificacions són necessaris. Parlarem també una miqueta de veure les mides, l'embalatge en general, com està funcionant, què és el que és atractiu, el que permeti realment, amb un breu informe, aprofitant també la presència de tots els professionals d'acció i de Mission Ventures aquí al mercat de Regne Unit, per identificar realment o per valorar si, juntament amb l'empresa catalana, confirmar que té sentit iniciar el projecte. Per a aquelles empreses que facin la fase 2, la fase 2 s'estructura en 2 grans punts. El primer l'anomenem auditoria comercial. Iniciarem amb l'auditoria comercial el que és un testeig digital. El fem a través d'una eina que es diu Viper i aquesta eina el que ens permet és analitzar la disposició del consumidor local a adquirir aquell producte, el que ens és, òbviament, molt important. Estem parlant que cada empresa tingui al voltant de 500 respostes de consumidors locals que ens donin una idea clara de la predisposició d'aquell consumidor a adquirir el producte que li estem presentant en base a l'envàs, al missatge que ens presenta, a quins sabors, el que estàvem parlant, de crear la marca, de veure també, potser algunes empreses, i ens hem trobat abans, es queden sorpreses amb l'alta competitivitat que tenim a Regne Unit o l'alta competència de producte que tenim, perquè el que potser al nostre mercat creiem que tenim un parell de marques i estem senzillament competint amb un rival, potser ens en trobem 5 o 6 aquí. I llavors hem de veure si realment veiem el valor afegit d'entrar en aquest mercat, hem de veure realment com diferenciar-nos d'aquella competència i per això necessitem primer conèixer aquesta disposició del consumidor local. En base a això, crearem un informe que ens permetrà tenir recomanacions concretes o, si s'escau, accions correctives de cara a adaptar el producte, adaptar el missatge, a conèixer una mica més què necessitem fer si volem tenir èxit en aquell mercat. Això, al final, aquest informe és crític, és un informe que ens servirà per iniciar aquest marató o aquesta marató que estava comentant en Paddy. I és crític també i servirà com a arguments fantàstics per veure si tenim la possibilitat de conèixer a grans compradors i presentar els resultats que esperem positius de consumidors locals. Això al final ens serveix després per tenir aquella conversa i com un argument de venda molt important de cara a introduir aquest producte al mercat de Regne Unit. La segona part, també destacable d'aquesta segona fase que volia compartir amb vosaltres, és que iniciaríem llavors tràmits per llistar el producte a Ocado. No sé com esteu familiaritzats amb Ocado, imagino que a molts de vosaltres us és molt familiar el nom. Ocado és dels principals supermercats online a Regne Unit. De fet, és amb un 18% de cobertura de mercat, és el tercer supermercat online més important, després de Tesco i Asda. I molt important també en el cas d'Ocado és que té un alt nombre de private label. No existeix la marca blanca amb un nivell tan alt com en els altres grans supermercats com Tesco o Sainsbury's. Mission Ventures gestiona la Discovery Shop d'Ocado, que bàsicament s'integra dins de la principal pàgina d'Ocado i és accessible des del principi, amb unes condicions preferents per nous productes que entren al mercat del Regne Unit i ens permet d'aquesta manera tenir un primer listing al mercat i veure si funciona. Aquests productes no garantim des del principi que puguin entrar a l'Ocado Discovery Shop, el que sí que garantim és que es presenten ja en l'Ocado Discovery Shop, gràcies també a la relació privilegiada en aquest sentit de Mission Ventures, que com us dic és qui gestiona aquesta botiga dins de la web d'Ocado, i iniciem ja llavors una acció comercial en aquesta segona fase, que com veieu també en aquesta diapositiva té un cost de 800 euros. Passaríem llavors a la fase final, que confiem poder dur a terme al març del 2021 i sobretot el que confiem és fer-la de forma presencial. Òbviament, si no tenim altres solucions telemàtiques o, com us dic, valorarem amb l'empresa en el moment, segons la situació, quina és la millor solució, però consistiria llavors en un desplaçament per tenir les reunions amb els grans compradors i conèixer també més a fons el mercat. Iniciaríem també amb una formació sobre aspectes clau per vendre a retail i food service al Regne Unit. Una formació que és possible també que decidim de totes formes fer-la telemàticament per començar a preparar el discurs abans de desplaçar-se al mercat del Regne Unit. Tindríem una sessió d'anar en profunditat amb els detalls de la gestió de cada categoria d'aliments o els que siguin rellevants amb aquella tongada d'empreses que faríem amb especialistes, especialistes del nivell d'una cadena com Sainsbury's. Faríem també un retail tour que faríem amb responsables de botiga de categories, coneixeríem els independents que estaven mencionant també en Louis i en Padio en la seva presentació, d'empreses com pot ser un Planet Orgànic, que potser us sona alguns de vosaltres, i també aniríem a veure la gran superfície de supermercats com Tesco, com Sainsbury's, com Asda, i ho faríem sempre de la mà de responsables de botiga per entendre bé com es posiciona i què hem d'esperar si volem posicionar el nostre mercat, el nostre producte en aquella gran superfície. Això es culminaria llavors amb les reunions amb el Meet the Buyer B2B amb grans compradors i distribuïdors. Aquesta és la presentació que us volia fer. Aquest és el programa que hem pensat pot ajudar, pot establir un diferencial de cara a l'èxit de l'empresa per iniciar aquesta marató de cara a arribar al mercat del Regne Unit que, com dèiem al principi i com la majoria sabeu, és un mercat altíssimament competitiu, és un mercat complex, però és un mercat que ens pot oferir molts i molts premis si aconseguim entrar de la forma correcta. Moltes gràcies.
Moltes gràcies, Òscar. Abans de res, demanar disculpes per les dificultats tècniques que hem tingut a l'inici d'aquesta sessió. Comencem amb l'espai de preguntes i respostes. A veure un segon. Anem a veure quines preguntes hem tingut. De moment, la primera pregunta, the first question, I think it's for you, Paddy and Louis. They say that they want to know, I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. It says, does the internet shopping include groceries bought online? I think they mean that if people from the UK actually buy groceries online?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you want to take that?
Yes, I think the last stat that I saw was that in the last month, 40% of the UK population had made at least one grocery purchase online. So a huge volume of effectively the weekly shop of food and drink now turns up on the doorstep after being ordered online. So it's convenient, choice is often much more, and quite often it's a little bit cheaper as well, because the retailer is not coming in the middle.
Okay, thank you. La segona pregunta diu la Meritxell, garantiu presentació d'una marca per gamma de producte? En aquest cas, Òscar, no sé si vols contestar. Jo crec que no podem donar garanties de presentar. Tot anirà en funció de com funciona, de si encaixa o no encaixa el vostre producte i si us adapteu al que estem treballant. Si realment se us donen recomanacions i es treballa amb aquestes recomanacions, doncs podem intentar presentar-ho amb aquests compradors. No sé si, Òscar, vols afegir alguna cosa?
No, totalment d'acord amb el que tu dius, Marc. La idea en aquest sentit és que la primera fase, que com us comentava, doncs és gratuïta, veiem realment el potencial que té el producte. Un cop estem a la fase 2, el que sí que estem assumint, el que sí que ja ens hem trobat és que creiem que és un producte que té aquest potencial i a no ser que hi hagi alguna opció correctiva que s'ha de prendre abans i que creiem que és necessària i és urgent fer-ho abans, sí que el que farem és presentar aquella tongada de productes, presentar-les ja a l'OKD Discovery Shop. Però al final s'ha d'entendre això, que és un programa per fases, en el qual valorarem i conjuntament amb l'empresa anirem parlant de tot plegat fins a arribar a poder presentar-ho a tots els compradors. Però no és que ho garantim, però sí que creiem que aquelles empreses que estan a la fase 2, això per resumir la resposta, doncs tenen un alt potencial per aconseguir passar per tot el programa.
Gràcies. El Jordi ens pregunta quin preu té el programa. El programa està dividit en 3 fases. La primera fase és gratuïta. De totes maneres, us enviarem a la presentació i allà surt marcat el preu i les fases. La primera és gratuïta, la segona fase té un cost de 800 euros i la següent fase són 1.100, oi, Òscar? No m'equivoco?
Tenim la primera fase gratuïta, la segona són 800 euros i la tercera fase són 1.300 euros.
1.300, perdó. 1.300. La Cristina ens pregunta com i quan hem d'aplicar pel programa. Doncs d'aquí uns dies us enviarem un e-mail amb la presentació, amb un enllaç a la presentació. Tindreu les meves dades de contacte. Si m'envieu un e-mail dient que teniu interès a participar en aquest programa, doncs a partir d'aquí us farem arribar un qüestionari d'inscripció. D'acord? Tindreu les meves dades. Totes les persones que esteu inscrites en aquest webinar, com que tenim el vostre e-mail, rebreu aquest correu. El que hem fet és que farem període d'inscripcions serà de l'1 al 15 del proper mes. D'acord? I entre el 15 i l'1 de novembre, que tenim intenció de començar, doncs serà quan us enviarem tot el que és el qüestionari i quines són les dates per començar. L'Anna ens pregunta, tema certificats. Si no tenim el BRC, ja que amb el tema Brexit no quedava clar la nova normativa, amb un certificat IFS és suficient o és imprescindible el BRC?
Hola, Anna. Sí, efectivament, amb l'IFS és suficient. I estem tots pendents també de com acabi la situació del Brexit, però de moment no seria cap problema. Amb l'IFS entraríem. Hi ha algunes superfícies que sí que poden demanar el BRC, però això ho veuríem cas a cas i podem iniciar perfectament el programa amb aquest certificat. Correcte.
Molt bé. L'Alessandro, Paddy and Louis, they're asking if the people in the UK are willing to pay the price of a quality product or the price that a quality product has, or do they want quality products for the price of an industrial product? I'm not sure if I got that question right. I guess if they're asking if it's a very competitive market regarding price.
Yes, I mean, price is going to become more important. It's self-evident from the move into recession. But I think one of the trends that we've seen, and Louis was referring to in his presentation, is that there is an interest, if you're not able to eat out in restaurants, people are saving money. And that's one of the reasons we've seen an increase in a number of more premium products being sold to the home. And also the amount of alcohol that's now being bought for consumption at home rather than in restaurants and bars. So if someone has a high quality product with great taste and great provenance and it sells at a premium, then that still has just as much chance of succeeding. But understanding it could be in a relatively narrow part of the retail market.
Okay, the next question is also for you. They say, can we sell to the UK organic market with an IFS certificate, or do you require a different certificate?
Good question. I'm not sure on that. I mean, we could take that away and come back. I think probably is the best way to answer that. I wouldn't want to give a false answer on that.
Okay, so Ellie, please, when I send you an email, if you could just ask me the question again, and we'll pass it to Paddy and Louis, and we'll try to find that out for you. Okay. The next question.
From our experience, they can have, depending on the buyer, they might have like a different different standards, and also sometimes the product, like depending on like how that brand is promoting itself and what's the message in there, they might be willing to have like some specific certificates or not. But I think it's important to go case by case on this, Ali.
Yeah, I think to add to that, Oscar's right. In my experience, IFS is normally okay, but it varies from retailer to retailer, and as Oscar says, product as well. So a product, meat or cheese, is high risk, whereas I don't know, a dry pasta or rice or something is lower risk. So the retailer might be okay with that. So it would be, as Paddy says, we can't give a good answer without knowing maybe what the product is, but happy to answer that offline.
Next question says, since it will not be easy to enter in the likes of Tesco and Sainsbury or others, do you recommend using simultaneously the more specialized channels like the gourmet channels?
Well, we talk all the time with wholesalers that are always looking for interesting new products to take to market. So I think, and some of the ones we mentioned on the slides, like Cotswold Fare and Tree of Life, who specialize very much in healthier and sometimes more premium products. I think that there's always a chance to build out a strong customer base with the independent retail market first. And that is where you can demonstrate the traction that many of the buyers will then want to see at the supermarkets. You have to realize that particularly in this market here, the buyers are not going to take risks on a product that's not been tested. Now, if your product is, another chorizo or something which is, very, very, very similar, very hard to differentiate, there will be other considerations around what might promote a listing. But in our experience, even building the brands that we are involved with directly here as shareholders in the UK, we always say, look, you need to be listed in places like Whole Foods and Selfridges, because that's where the trade will look. They'll look to see what products are being listed in these key retail environments, because it's a demonstration that someone else has already tested the product, believes it has a marketplace. And then that's when you start to be able to build some momentum, which gives you the, if you like, the right to go and ask for the listing in the major supermarkets.
Okay, the next question, I think it's also for both of you, also for Oscar and Paddy and Louis. It says advantages and disadvantages and also opportunities because of Brexit in the retail in the UK.
What would you like to start, Paddy?
Yeah, so, well, the simple answer is that people's tastes don't change because we've made some crazy decision. So people will still want Spanish produce, and I think there's obviously been a strong heritage of the British visiting Spain, so there's familiarity with Spanish cuisine. So I think there's always going to be a strong demand for that. And in the near future, if travel is still problematic in the next year or two, which is quite possible, then the opportunity for people to bring Spain into their homes is an attractive option. So I believe there will still be good trade. Now, we can't comment on the trade negotiations and tariffs, etc. But clearly there's some brinkmanship going on between the politicians at the moment on all of this. But fundamentally, we need a good trading relationship with the EU, and I know Spanish food will always be very welcome here.
Yeah, from my side, a little bit like filling up what Paddy said. Like, of course, on the downside of things, we're gonna have like likely some additional controls, controls phytosanitaries, aranzels, so customs duties and certifications that these might change. Of course, keep in mind, if it does change, it changes for you, it changes for everyone. who's selling in the market. It's not like you're going to be at a disadvantage. The only disadvantage might happen when you have a clear competitor who's a local competitor and is actually sourcing most of it locally. So there, I mean, and again, we need to review this case by case, but that can be the downside. On the upside, I think in the end, those, I mean, as Paddy said, I mean, the UK is always, people are going to keep eating and it's still going to be a very open market. But at the same time, maybe the upside, I mean, likely those brands that are more committed to the market are the ones that are going to make the extra effort. So it might even like maybe get out of the market some of the competitors that you would have now.
Great. So it's already 11, 1 past. So the last question, would you recommend selling our brand or packaging for supermarket brands? I think they are asking about private label. What do you think about private label? Is it really worth it? Do you think it's good?
The problem with private label is that you are a commodity, you're a product. There's no brand involved. So the minute somebody else can offer a similar product at a more competitive price with the same quality, then you are at risk. So I don't rule it out. I don't know what product you're producing, but clearly there is an opportunity always for people to supply direct under private label, but it is always going to be a more risky marketplace because you are at the discretion of the buyer as to what else is being sold. If you can build a brand, and I know that's very much the focus of the work that we do, but the brand is where you deliver something which the consumer recognizes and asks for, rather than the product.
Perfect. And with that, we're finishing our session today. Thank you very much, Paddy. Thank you very much, Luis, and also Oscar. A la resta, esperem que hagi sigut un webinar interessant. Com us he comentat abans, ens rebreu un correu amb les meves dades de contacte. Qualsevol dubte, consulta que no hagi pogut ser resolta durant el Q&A que hem fet ara, doncs envieu-me un correu i intentaré donar-vos resposta. Res més, moltes gràcies i fins aviat.